Chapter 10 talks about motivating employees. It goes into a lot of theory. A lot of it can be common sense, where I think the ideal job, we like what we're doing, the boss treats us fairly, and we're paid well, and we're not overstressed. Unfortunately, I don't think those types of jobs really exist. It talks about young brands. They try to boost morale. When morale is high in a company, people will work harder, the staff. And you have intrinsic rewards, extrinsic rewards. And a lot of times, your intrinsic reward is in the pride of your performance, achievement, helping people, and maybe your job contributes to society. Extrinsic, raises, promotions, awards. We all like a good paycheck. However, sometimes it's a little bit more than that, where it can motivate the people. I've known companies where the staff, are not paid as well as their competitors, yet the company has more retention because they do other things for their staff. Fringe benefits, one of them that people do love is flexible work hours, where you can come in earlier or stay later that day. As a teacher, if I teach in a classroom, I really cannot have flexible work hours if the class is from 11 to 1 o'clock. I can't start the class at 3 o'clock that day because other people are involved. So there are some downsides to these things here. People like vacation and being able to take it, retirement, promotions, recognition. You're not going to get a big promotion if you're working for a small company of 6 people. You could get a raise or a bonus at the end of the year. And there are people like Taylor that have done a lot of scientific studies on people. Yes, they have been good, but people are not robots. But they're talking about different ways to increase productivity with the methods of work. Automation increases it, some rules, regulations, and being on time, especially if it's a production line, you're making cars, and you have 32 people on that production line. If somebody's missing, nobody is going to be able to put the car seats in there, and they're just going to sit there piling up on the line. However, you can cross-train people so that way somebody can pinch hit and help and get that car seat in there. And these were the 4 principles. And there, again, I keep repeating certain things. It's in the book. I'm trying to keep these tutorials brief. I don't want them to go on and on. But you do want to have their skills matching what the responsibility is. You're not going to hire a klutz to install the plumbing. You might want that clumsy person to do customer service because that person has excellent people skills. Time motion studies, where they want to see how many widgets you can make in an hour. And then we have motion economy, where you can break things down into particles, saying what has to be done. You might find new ways of doing things. I will show you something with UPS, which is very accurate. It talks about stress. We all get stress. It's knowing how to cope with it, deal with it. It's part of life. And I would say your job, your career is only a part of your life. It's a means to an end. Don't get too wrapped up in it. You have friends, volunteer work, other things there that will fulfill you better. UPS, they do have strict rules. And one of the rules is that they typically are to make right turns. They're faster to make than left turns. And they do this. I've met a couple of UPS people, and they say it is true what they go through, that they are highly regulated. The people are very productive. They're paid well. They're treated well. Hawthorne studies, and I love this here. People act differently when they know they're being studied. Of course they do. If somebody's watching me do something, I'm going to act differently than when I'm home doing it by myself. But they're trying to increase productivity. Maslow talks about the theory of motivation and what it is, meeting your certain needs. If you have to meet basic needs, or if you are meeting them, they will be more motivated. It's such as being paid, safe environment. And it talks about the hierarchy of needs: physiological, safety, which I just mentioned, social, you want to like the people you're working with, you want to feel good about yourself, and then finally, self-actualization. Doesn't mean you're going to get this in every job. If you're flipping burgers all day, you're just going to be really happy if you have good friends there. I did this for a couple years when I was in college. My esteem was not really increased or my self-actualization, but I was saying to myself, it's helping to pay the tuition next semester. Herzberg talks about motivating factors. They want to know how to increase worker motivation. What do you do in the job to how do you rank these job related factors in order of importance related to motivation? And the motivators are factors that cause the employees to become productive and will give them satisfaction. What a lot of employees like is a bit of autonomy, and I would say almost all of us do. We don't want to be micromanaged on things that are relevant. It goes into this in more detail in the text here. Hygiene, which is the maintenance factors here, where it talks about things where they can cause dissatisfaction. They really don't have that much motivational effect, but when I see this, sometimes I disagree with things here. I don't know how motivated I would be if I had a feeling I was going to get fired any day. But the motivators are shown in the left column. And it compares Maslow with Herzberg. Depends on the organization where it would be applied to. Talks about reigniting your drive. One thing I would say to people, try not to complain too much. We all have issues with our jobs. However, when you complain, it just brings you down. Try to think of the good things. And partners, teams can make it more fun. It really can. Even when you're doing stuff around the house, if you have to do work in the yard or something, you get a couple of people doing the yard, you get it done a lot faster, and you have more fun because you can converse rather than just being out there all day raking leaves. Talking about theory X and theory Y into motivation. In X, they say workers don't like work. They're going to be punished. You fear and punish. This sounds like indentured servitude to me. Ooh. Y. This sounds good. People like work, part of life. They want to use their creativity to solve a problem, and they're motivated by a variety of rewards. Then we came out with theory Z. And what it is, it's the hybrid between the United States and the Japanese. A lot of this is cultural. What it is, in America, we get very focused on the individual. In the Asian or Japan, they're committed to the organization and the group. You can combine things, but too often, a lot of people today are saying, what's in it for me, instead of what's in it for my organization or my department. And they went into this Z where they modified it, more holistic, concern for the employees as a group. And then we have all these theory comparisons. Again, a lot of these are listed in the text. Goal setting theory. You want to set goals, increase sales, manufacture 100 widgets by next Tuesday. And this is a good way to motivate the staff into getting it done. And then there's another thing called MBO, Management by Objectives, where they do these objectives, managers formulate them, you monitor the results. We did this in one company that I was in, and personally, I was not crazy about it because my objectives might be different than yours or somebody down the halls. But this little chart here goes into it. You have the organizational objectives at the top. Flowing down, you see the arrows. Expectancy theory. You can have different expectations from or for each person. And it's just getting the employee to be more not dependent, but more visual, more visualization of the outcome where they can accomplish it. Talks about it here. If you can accomplish something and you say you can't, like if they asked me to build a bridge across the Hudson River, I can't do it. I have no motivation. Or if the reward is really stinky, I'm not motivated here. But if I can accomplish the task and the reward is worth it because they're going to name the bridge after me, and I know I'm a really smart engineer, I will definitely be motivated into doing that. Talks about the expectancy theory with managers. You and the employees might disagree on number 5, but you want a reward that is good, and giving them a coffee cup is not what I would call an adequate reward. I don't need any more coffee cups on my shelf. Reinforcement, positive and negative. Positive does work better. I'd rather praise the horse than beat the horse. You praise, pay increases, recognition. And you have to use a negative because some people don't want to be fired, okay? Equity theory. It's good. You got a group of people. If you're a manager, you have to treat them all pretty much the same. Can't show favorites. You can even get that with students. I have had students say, you're showing favoritism to so-and-so. And what I will often say to that student who is complaining, I say, well, I'm favoring that student because they do their work on time, they know the material, they're prepared, and they don't offer an excuse every time they miss a class or their failure to study. I have done this with staff too, where they have complained I'm treating somebody better than the other, and I said, well, Mary is in on time all the time. She can handle the client load. She's doing a lot more than you, and you're constantly having an issue, and you're not getting along with the staff. So I suggest, Fred, that you try to emulate her behavior, and I might treat you just the same as her. You want to enrich the job. You know, there are some jobs that are pretty meaningless, but if you enrich it enough where they feel that they have some autonomy in there, they will be more motivated. And it talks about innovation or motivation on a budget. Things you can do. It's not always money. You could do non-cash rewards, and sometimes you could just give them an extra day off, which really doesn't cost you anything if things are a little bit slow that week. Or leaving early on Fridays. A lot of companies do summer hours. You get out at noon. And a lot of staff really likes it. Enrichment of the job, you can enlarge it. Give them more work, believe it or not, or rotate them. You give them things that are more challenging, a lot of people will rise to it. And you can go, it talks about other ways here with flexibility here. Flexibility is important. Management needs to realize that. I know if you're working in Macy's, it's going to be difficult, but you can offer things, trade time with other coworkers. It can work. Open communication. Managers have to listen. And you have to talk to the employees. Find out what is important to them. Social media, too social. It's banned in a lot of companies. A lot of companies do monitor what you're doing on your computer. They get reports. Some people say it's a bad idea. It's going to alienate young employees. I'm a baby boomer. I don't like it at all. Yes, I have a Facebook page. However, I would not dream of doing this at work. It's one thing if you're on your lunch hour, do it there. You need to focus on the task at hand. It's not that I don't trust you, but it can be a huge time waster. And yes, I am seeing grown-ups, middle-aged people like me who are spending too much time on their social media. They're bored or whatever, but you need to focus. And yes, I've gotten bored too. And the other thing too that I know with the email, you don't have to be online 24/7. You know your teacher is not a 24/7 person. I let it go to voicemail. I don't answer emails immediately. I can wait time. As I said, when I'm available with students, I'm available twice a day. You never know what time it is during the week. Not available on weekends. I do travel, and sometimes I'm not even near Wi-Fi when I'm in the middle of Long Island Sound. The world does go on, believe it or not. Recognize good work. Again, I've put this in here before and before. Actually, the book put this in here. Talks about working well with others, getting along, communicating. If somebody, a coworker, is disappointing you, say something to them, so that way they can get their act together. Talks about positive rewards here. The monetary is one of the smallest sections there. People want to be recognized. They want to communicate other things too. And what's bad for you. A lot of people don't like being micromanaged. That's like almost 1 out of every 5 people. They don't like it. And they want a boss that communicates. That's 1/3. And a lot of companies, small ones, can do things to make the job a little more exciting. I worked at one company, wasn't my greatest, but we had a little staff meeting every Monday. They brought in pizza and soda, which was pretty nice of them. And then you also, too, if you're working for an international company, it becomes global. Some things work in America, but they're not going to work in Japan or Nigeria or Peru. Talks about the generations here. I'm a baby boomer, okay? Um, they all have a different attitude, culture brought up, other things too. Generation Z, I'm getting students now that are Generation Z. The Alpha, that's going to be a few years. They're only a few years old. They're like in the first grade now. But the Generation Z has grown up with things totally different than what I grew up with. Talks about Generation X, okay? They want career security. They will change jobs more often than a baby boomer. They're very good in many ways. They like to collaborate. They are more concerned about results than the number of hours. That is fine. Millennials, very tech savvy. They want a work-life balance. That's a great thing. I want it too. Some people are more workaholic. And then it talks about the communication. I definitely prefer face-to-face. And it says what Generation X, Generation Y, Millennial here. I deal with some nieces and nephews. They love social media, and I do tell them, you pick up the phone and call me. I'm not being an old patootie, but this is how I choose to communicate. And I would say if you've got parents that are baby boomers or Generation X, you've got to communicate on their terms. I can accept their terms, but you cannot automate a hug.